the title was a little bit short there. I think I might have cut it off a bit. One of the things with being a science teacher, and I'm really, to me, labs are extremely important. It's the part of science that, I mean, you really can't get in the classroom. But a lot of times when we are conducting labs and things along those nature, what happens is the labs that we do end up rote. It's a recipe. Things get repeated over and over and over. So we had the opportunity this year to try to do something a little bit different, to make a lab maybe a little more valid than what it would normally be. So we thought about a few ideas, and those of you that know me know that I'm an expert on hobbies. My main hobby is hobbies. So a lot of them have to do with science, a lot of them do with all sorts of things. One of the things that's really interested me over the last few years has been this neat little organism that has been around here for eons, and it's called algae. Microalgae to be exact. And one of the neat things about this algae is that it has the ability, just with not much more than carbon dioxide and a little bit of sunlight, producing probably anywhere from 40 to 70% of its weight in this wonderful material called lipids or fats. Once these things are refined out of these little things, they can be turned into biodiesel. Keeping that in mind, there's two things in Kentucky that we tend to have a whole lot of. We have a lot of surface mines, and we have a lot of water most of the time as well. So what my group of juniors, chemistry, sophomores too, I guess might be a few in there, what we came up with, we wanted to look and do something along the lines of a feasibility study. Sort of an informal feasibility study, but we wanted to look at the possibility of what kind of results we would get if we sampled a series of what's called bench ponds. These are the ponds on a surface mine that surround pretty much the perimeter of the mine. This is sort of the first line of sediment collection. They're always, if you've ever been to a surface mine before, you'll realize that every one of these ponds in the summer, for the most part, are green. So what we wanted to do, pick a mine and collect samples from all these ponds and actually leave some of them to their own devices, let them see what happens. The others use a different type of algae. We've not really, right now we're sort of looking at an algae called spirulina, but there's some others that actually may produce more lipids. And actually collecting samples from these ponds, treating them over the course of the winter, since it'll be too cold for them to grow on site, giving them similar environmental conditions that we would have in the summer in Kentucky, and actually measure the rate of growth of algae, different types of algae in these ponds. Now, I don't know if any of y'all have really looked into algae as a source of biodiesel, but let me give you some quick numbers. And these widely vary for the most part, but they're fairly close. For an acre of corn per year, an acre of corn will generate somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 gallons of ethanol. Sunflower, soy, some of the others will produce somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 200 gallons of an oil, which is convertible into biodiesel. From all estimates that I've ever been able to see, algae, an acre, now we're talking an acre as far as surface area of a pond. An acre of algae per year has the capability of producing anywhere from 2,000 to 20,000 gallons of biodiesel. Now, you know, when I started talking about this with my students up here, one of them kept saying, I think it was Angie here, said, why aren't we doing it then? Why aren't we doing it? Well, that's what we're going to try and figure out. There are a lot of problems still existing in this process. one of the problems is, in Kentucky, we have just a few months where this can grow at a reasonable rate. One of the other problems with algae is these little critters are tough. It's really hard to extract these lipids from the algae. But we've got another idea in the works for next year where we've got another way we're going to try and extract it. We'll hopefully be back to tell you about that next year. But for the most part, there is no infrastructure in place right now to do this sort of work. But the other thing that most folks don't realize about algae, especially this one we were talking about, spirulina, in large portions of the world, spirulina is grown as a food. I think all of these folks have tried a little bit of it, haven't you? Yeah. It's a different taste. I guess you'd call it an acquired taste, but it is one of the healthier foods. It's got a lot of omega-3 in it. But the other product from this process, after you've literally squeezed the oil out of it, is cattle feed. Now, if you've driven to Lexington down through Winchester, you've probably seen the, what's the name of the company? It's lost me now. Alltech. And you'll see right on the side of their building in big green letters, algae. Alltech, as last I heard, they were actually producing this as they're testing it for animal feed. So again, algae has the possibility of doubling its population basically every 24 hours. So over the course of a good 4-month, 5-month growing season, you have the possibility of really reaping some, pulling in quite a bit of algae that way. But again, the process is new. There's been several companies, startups, that have started with this and didn't evaluate it the right way. They went under because they didn't plan on having enough water in there or things like that. Again, we generally do not have a problem with water in eastern Kentucky for the most part. But anyway, I see I've already went on my soapbox long enough, but it's something that is extremely interesting. The kids, I'll guarantee you they're interested in it because it's all they talk about anymore. But more than anything else, it's something that everyone, if you've never heard of it, take the time to look up algae biodiesel. And does anyone have any questions? Yes? No. Excellent. Do you have the information? Uh-huh. I'd love to have that. Thank you. Yes? Excellent. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Thank you.